Hello, hello. I'm Boyd Hilton. I'm not Kirsty Young. Maybe this is packed. It's so packed. It's like standing room only.
I'm really worried you think something much more interesting is going to happen than me being interviewed by Boyd.
Do you think it's because of last year? You enjoyed it so much last year, famously, that all these people have come here now to witness.
I thought the football would be a much bigger draw, to be honest.
Gary Neville, no, not as big as you, Jay Hunt, Chief Creative Officer of Channel 4.
Yeah.
This is your third year in that role at the festival. Thanks for coming back. Thanks for doing it. I am Boyd Hill. I'm not Kirsty, but I will be asking you a series of highly difficult, probing questions about all the different controversies and interesting things that have happened over the last year and what you've got coming up in the future. The last year's been an interesting one because you've had things like you've had the Paralympics, which was an amazing success. You've had interesting dramas like Utopia, Southcliffe and The Mill, which all did very well critically, at least. You've had a healthy amount of sex, of course, with the dogging programme, which was one of the most extraordinary things I've ever seen on TV, so we've got to talk about that. And you discovered an English king in a car park, where also dogging occurs as well, of course. So, mass murder, sex, skeletons, and comic book psychopaths, which of those did you enjoy the most?
I don't see it in quite that vein. I mean, I think it has been an extraordinary year, and I think when I was sitting here last year, we were anticipating the Paralympics. I've got to be honest, pretty nervous, probably more nervous than I showed, and I'm thrilled with how that landed, but we had Stand Up to Cancer, the highest telethon launched on a commercial channel for many, many years. We've had, as you said, an extraordinary year, I think, this year with Southcliffe and The Mill and Top Boy and Run and Complicit and Utopia in terms of drama. We've still got an incredible slate of docs, I think the envy of lots of other channels in terms of our strength there. We've had new hits at 8 o'clock with Amazing Spaces and Kirsty's Fill Your House for Free and Kevin's Man-Made Home. So I think it's been a year of consolidating, of building, of innovating and launching lots of new titles, most of which have worked. So if you refuse to pick one out, that's fine. So let's have a look then at some of that stuff in this opening VT of your last year at Channel 4.
You sure you're ready?
Ready? The world's not ready for me. That should be a good thing, right?
Just fuck that up.
This shit just got real.
It would be nice to see him settle down with a nice lass. Someone who understands, Steve.
Every man's dream.
I've worked 23 years. I think I've earned a bit back off the social.
There's a really abnormal curvature of it.
Did you put him in there?
I didn't do that.
I bet you did.
You are literally squatting on my property.
Okay, start CPR, folks.
Oh my God!
That little girl.
You've got great eyes, you know.
You too? Wow.
You need to listen to me so we can help her.
You know what happens when things are bad? Daddy's here.
Did your supervisors want intelligence on members of Stephen's family?
Yes.
Murder is obviously the most serious crime we have.
This isn't me, Carrie.
Bullshit. I don't want to die.
Southcliffe, it's not that kind of place, is it? There's something going on in my head.
I know when I've woken up with my leg on, I've had hell of a night.
You getting tit! Painted. So much pain.
Welcome to Stand Up to Cancer!
I am here to kick cancer's ass.
Horrors Encore wins the Grand National.
Welcome to what promises to be the biggest and best Paralympic Games ever.
Are you going to do it? Everyone who's supported me.
London 2012, made in Britain.
So we cunningly ended that selection of clips with the Paralympics, which I think most people would agree was a triumph. Did you expect it to be? Were you confident? You said you were nervous this time last year.
Well, I just think, it was self-evidently a huge national event. We're a smaller broadcaster. I mean, I'd been at the BBC when we were planning the scheduling for the Olympics, so I had a pretty good idea of what we were up against. And I think it was really important that we found a way of landing it which had a uniquely Channel 4 tone of voice. And I think the most extraordinary thing about it was we did it in a way that was true to Channel 4, whether it's taking a huge punt on someone like Adam with The Last Leg, the commitment we made to brand new disabled talent fronting difficult sports coverage. It just felt like it had values at its heart that were unique to Channel 4. And I think that's why people responded in the way that they did. And I think for everyone on the channel, it's been an extraordinary thing to have lived through, because it has a lasting legacy and it has brought about change in terms of people's attitudes towards disability. And for a public service broadcaster to have those reminders that we can do something important and powerful that really brings about social change, that's a really phenomenal thing to have had happen.
Has it changed your kind of view on programmes about disability, in that you're more confident now you can have more programmes covering that kind of topic? And will you have more commissions, apart from the ones we know about? The Last Legs on its 3rd series, I think?
Yeah.
So will there be more programmes covering that?
I think at the end of the day, the Paralympics brought an audience partly because it was the Paralympics, and I think what I'm so proud of the team for having done is to then take that forward and say, well, where do we go next? The legacy has to keep going. So whether it's Arthur Williams presenting our D-Day show, or Katie Piper doing her first solo feature series for us later this year, or Giles Dooley going back to Afghanistan, it's not just saying we've got to do work, let's keep going. It's that ongoing commitment to say this matters, we want to change attitudes, and we're going to do that. I mean, later this autumn, we've got an extraordinary access series which the Garden are doing for us inside the Maudsley. And again, building on what we did last year with the Channel 4 Goes Mad season and debunking issues around mental health, to be in the heart of a psychiatric hospital. I don't think any other channel would do that. So
that'd be like a fixed rig kind of show where you're watching. Yeah. It must be a nightmare getting kind of permission for that. Was that difficult?
Yeah, I mean, huge credit to the Garden for getting in there, but I think they trade on the reputation of 24 Hours in A&E, and people can see that we take the duty of care issues really, really seriously. But I think that will be a really important series for us this autumn.
And in terms of the live element of it, it showed that the channel could cover this huge, big live event, lots and lots of live shows day in, day out. Did that encourage you to have more live, big events? And is that something you're interested in doing again in the future?
I think when you look at the wider landscape now, and we all know it as viewers, and those spikes that come about from big sporting moments are incredibly important to channels, and they are what stops a channel feeling hermetically sealed and as though it was, commissioned 15 years ago and it's just going out in any particular order. I think the success we had with the Paralympics, the huge success we had with the Grand National, the ongoing success we had with the racing, of course that gives you an appetite for those sorts of things. But as I say, pieces like Stand Up to Cancer equally are just a reminder that we too can have those moments which will bring audiences to the channel for a big live event. And it could be sport, it could be something else, but I think there's definitely an appetite for that.
Well, this was something else. This was a live event you did, Easter eggs live. Let's have a look at this clip.
We've got an egg that was cracking round here.
Well, just while we were concentrating on the ducks, it all started off with the chicks. So while we were talking over there, 2 have hatched. So we can see the eggshell that he's left behind.
Just over there. Guys, can you see that? And I mean, this one is very recent. Is that the one out of that egg over there?
He's out of this little blue egg
here.
just in front of you.
Yeah.
So
no, hello, sweetheart. Welcome to the world.
So if you look inside the egg, you can even now see the membrane he's just detached from.
Oh, he is so, but again, exhausted. Yeah.
So that was a show, just to remind, that went out over Easter, kind of two nights, covering the hatching of eggs of various creatures. Now, were you confident that was going to work as a TV?
Yeah, because I think, at the end of the day, I mean, one of the things we're there to do is to take risks and to think of different ways into familiar subject areas. I mean, natural history is a classic in a sense. The BBC has an extraordinary, a worldwide reputation in natural history, but I think there must be ways in which other channels can be innovative and think of it in different sort of ways. I mean, the value of a piece like that, I happened to be watching with 3 kids when Kevin the Emu came into the world, and I can tell you that the streaming around that got lots of kind of whooping, but I think finding a way in which we can use second screen technology, streaming, understanding how we can do natural history, which in a way which doesn't feel like an also-ran for the BBC, but actually feels like a distinctive way in for potentially a younger audience, is really, really important, and we're very proud of what we learned from that.
So are you looking at more unusual live products? Should people be thinking of weird and wonderful live events that they can kind of pitch to you?
No, I mean, I've always said this. Well, no, because not least because my background is in live television, and I think you should always be doing live because it enhances the audience's experience of something. You should never do live for the sake of it. It's got to add something to it. So we're not actively out there saying we want everything to be live. If there's an event which merits being live, which will be better for being live, then let's have that conversation. But there's not a massive crusade to find more in that vein.
Well, you might not have a massive crusade, but we are going to have, obviously we're all about interactivity and the heady world of Twitter at the TV festival. So I'm now going to ask you to engage in this slightly cheesy, but go with it, idea of live tweeting your ideas. If you have any ideas for live events that Channel 4 could be doing, they could be as funny as you like. Try and be funny is the idea of this particular element of the controller sessions. So you can tweet that hashtag there, hashtag TV controllers. What's next for live on Channel 4? Maybe Jay will get really excited by some of these and commission you by the end of this hour, or maybe not. Sounds like maybe not. And they will magically come up on this iPad here. I'm in a 2 iPad situation, but I'll try and keep my eye on this iPad in front of me. And if any of them are good and funny, I'll throw them at you and try and laugh if
okay. I'm on it.
Think they're funny. Good. So that's the what's next for live element. Hashtag. What was it? Yeah. Anyway. Hashtag Keep TV Controllers, yes. So you also did Bedtime Live. That was another extraordinary kind of attempt at doing a live thing. Putting your kids to bed. That again strikes me as being an intrinsically bold on one hand, possibly foolish idea on the other, but what was the thinking behind that?
That's a great description of all things that are brilliant, aren't they? I'm very reluctant to sort of pass on sort of cats driving cars type YouTube clips, but there's a brilliant TED lecture, if anyone's seen it, with Sir Ken Robinson as a creativity expert, talking about you have to be prepared to be wrong to get anything original. And I think part of what we're there to do is to take huge risks, and sometimes they'll work and sometimes they won't work. And I think, with Bedtime Live, this is a channel that's had a long history of being very effective with parenting programs. We know that one of the key sources of anxiety in new parents is getting their kids to bed. It got an audience, it didn't get as big an audience as it might have done, but nonetheless, I think there were things in that you take away you think are extraordinary. At one point, to see a man crawling on the bedroom floor trying to hold the hand of a tiny baby through a cot and thinking we are live in those people's homes. Just purely for the insight as to what this technology can do for telly and how we can move forward and how we can exploit that, I think those sorts of experiments are really worth doing.
Moving away from live, you did have this extraordinary event concerning finding Richard III in the car park. Let's just remind ourselves of that. Let's have a look at this clip.
You remember this morning we talked about the skull that we found, and we said that we didn't think that it could possibly be part of the same person as the legs that we'd found earlier, because the orientation of it was completely wrong.
Yeah.
And that's true. The orientation is completely wrong for a normal body. But I've just been excavating the spinal column, and if you take a look at it along here, you can see that there's a really abnormal curvature of it. So what we're actually seeing here is that this skeleton, in fact, has a hunched back.
Wow. No.
Yeah.
No. Do you mind if I sit on mud? Honestly.
Go on, have a seat.
So that was a massive hit, like 3.7 million in the overnight.
It's much higher than that now, actually. But
yeah.
I love that story because it's just such a Channel 4 story. I think Martin at the BBC has been gracious enough to say that the BBC turned this down. For someone to come and say to you, I think I found a king, I think he's in a car park, who thinks that? A lady with not a huge amount of archaeological pedigree. Fair enough. Let's put a presenter on it who's never presented history before. Only at Channel 4 would any of those things have happened. And I think I can confidently predict I'll be the only channel controller in the next 50 years who will sit here having found a king in a car park. So, what an amazing story about taking a punt on someone and it playing.
When you're worried that he might not be there and it might not be the king, what do you have done?
Then it wasn't there. I think, in a funny sort of way, it's a brilliant sort of parable about Channel 4 that we have to take punts on things. They may not pay off. This was a huge punt. It did pay off. And I've got to be honest, nothing gave me greater pride than seeing Ralph Lee on News 24 talking about having found Richard III in a car park, and it's a story we're going to continue to follow. I hope that we'll be involved in the reinterment as well, and I think it's an amazing moment for the channel. This is a piece of modern history. We found it, and what an extraordinary thing.
Try and find other kings in car parks.
Well, no, I think that's unlikely, to be honest.
Let's talk about the dread word. Well, I say dread word only because as a journalist it's a slightly dread word. Multi-platform commissioning and the multi-platform. Has Channel 4 slightly changed, or in fact completely changed, its view on how to commission for that? And are you now, because at one point I think you had, the idea was to have multi-platform, someone specialising in that, in all the different genres, so there'd be someone monitoring how to sort of comedy out in a multi-platform. Now it's not like that at all, is it? And why have you changed that?
No, it is predominantly like that. I think what we've really done is simply reinforce around areas that we've had real success. So play-along games, for example, with £1 Million Drop. Jodie in that department's had huge success. We're consolidating around that. We've got a new quiz coming up later in the year with David Mitchell. We've got a Twitter play-along game. So play-along game we've had huge expertise in and grown. Specialist factual, things like Foxes Live, Easter Egg Live, that sort of streaming natural history event. Again, Kate Quilton in that department's had huge success there as well. And in features and factual entertainment, the sorts of extraordinary statistics we've got in terms of saving money on the NHS with things like the health checker. So how can we use our features content to give educational, useful, informative content online that sits alongside the programme? So that hasn't fundamentally changed. I think that'll be the primary focus of what we do.
And what is 4 Now? You've got this thing called 4 Now, and how does that fit into the whole multi-platform commissioning thing? We've got a slide about it here.
Before it is there, it is a new app that we're launching. I think it's exciting, and I suppose the best way of describing it is it creates a sort of social media bubble. If you're a Channel 4 viewer and you want to enjoy Channel 4. It's an app that you can use to get extra content, to interact with the shows, to have your Twitter feed there the entire time. And I think it just enhances that experience. And why does it matter to us? Because we've got the youngest audience of any terrestrial channel. You know, people talk about the future and the future will be multi-platform. Well, for Channel 4, the future's there now. And so we need to understand how this second screen is working, how people are interacting with telly, how we can go from being passive watchers to active consumers of telly. And that's happening all the time. So innovations like this, I think, are really critical for us.
You mentioned Twitter, and I'm fascinated by the subject of people tweeting about shows, because I think Crazy About One Direction, that extraordinary documentary about the Directioners and fantasy gay sex between members of One Direction, and the size of their penises as well. Fascinating hour. If you haven't seen it, it's on 4OD. But that was the most tweeted about show, is that right, in the history of Channel 4?
The universe, I think, yeah.
Or even the universe. And yet it wasn't a massive hit in the ratings. So does it mean that there's not necessarily a correlation between the two? Or is Twitter important
I'm slightly obsessed about this. I think Twitter and Zbox and 4 Now, I think in time will become a sort of ratings early warning system. And if you look at it, you see entirely predictably that social media take-up still tends to be more obvious amongst younger audiences. So things that can trend and everything tend to deliver quite good young audiences. Often you can get huge audiences for shows that are delivering a slightly older demographic, and you don't get much Twitter reaction at all. So I mean, I still think you see those sorts of splits.
And during Chicken Shop, I know, which is a brilliant one-off documentary looking at...
Soon to be a series coming to Channel 4.
Oh, fantastic. And that was like one of them hugely tweeted about, and you had John Prescott tweeting about it. I think we can see some of his...
Yeah, I mean, this was a phenomenon. I don't know if anyone watched this when it was going out, but there was one moment, I don't know if Emma Cooper's here actually, who commissioned it, but fried chicken shop, variations on the theme of drumstick were trending under 9 different hashtags at one point. And you think, I mean, I suppose the magic of telly is you just don't quite know when something like that's going to pop. So it not only delivered a really good audience online and say it's coming back as a series, but it was a social media phenomenon.
We've had some tweets about our job interviews live. That's actually quite a good idea. So
that's been pitched loads of times, most recently by Endemol.
Oh, OK. And what about Conception Live? That's very Channel 4,
Conception Live has also been pitched loads of times, actually, surprisingly, but you kind of come away thinking, OK, fine. I mean, I appreciate feedback on this. Conception Live, right result if they're pregnant, less so if they're not.
Oh,
not a great moment, that.
Come on, be more original.
You haven't got a baby.
OK, go up some of the original ideas, guys, not ones that have been pitched by Endemol 5,000 times. Let's move on from Twitter to actual audience figures. And I think it's fair to say that Channel 4 ratings have been down, haven't quite matched what kind of you'd need in terms of your targets and all of that. Is that fair, and why do you think that's happened?
Well, I think I wouldn't say what we need. I mean, I think, you know, clearly you're talking about our all individual share, and that's an important part of what we are measured on. We're also measured on demographics, which are much more robust than that. We're also measured on the number of shows that we deliver light viewers on, where the figures are incredibly good for Channel 4. It's also important that we have huge reach with 16 to 34s, which we do, on a par with ITV1s, actually. So, yes, the all individuals is slightly down this year. I think, you know, to be blunt, I have, most of you probably heard me on a platform like this for the past 8 years. I worked out the other day, I'm sitting here doing these sessions, and I think you become quite sanguine. There'll be ups and there'll be downs. I think we had a very good first quarter, we had an incredibly good fourth quarter, we had a slightly weaker second quarter, and then in the last 3 weeks we've launched some of, probably 5, I think, of our highest rating shows this year, with The Mill and Southcliffe and How to Get a Council House, Benefit Britain, Kirsty Fill Your House. So I think it's always going to be a bit of a roller coaster, particularly on a channel that is reinventing itself at such a pace. But I feel pretty relaxed about where we are.
Do you feel relaxed? Does it infuriate you that Channel 5 beat you for a week at one point and it's beaten you sometimes?
It's hugely dull, this, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but I mean, Channel 5 didn't beat us for a week by any measure that the industry actually recognises. But to be blunt, if I were a PR at Channel 5 and I'd found a way that if I took out all of the hours between midnight and 6 o'clock in the morning and you squinted and you turned your head on the side, then you sort of beat us, I might have done it too. So fair play to them. But, you know, as I say, normal service has resumed. We have a huge margin between us and Channel 5. I mean, it's worth remembering that in any given week, E4 frequently outperforms Channel 5, particularly for young audiences or for young audiences. So I'm not hugely concerned about that.
But the ratings targets are part of your remit, though, aren't they, Channel, as a public service broadcaster and all of that? So it is something you have to worry about, I guess, and you have to kind of...
Yeah, but you have to worry about it for a different reason. We're a public service broadcaster. I want people to watch Channel 4. My point is that we are also there to do something else. The remit for Channel 4 is an incredibly exciting remit. It's about risk, it's about new talent, it's about giving voices to communities that don't get heard elsewhere. So there are many metrics for success, and yes, we want people to come to the channel, but we don't sell against all individuals, we sell against 2 different demographics, and it's just as important to me that we are getting critical acclaim for what we're doing, we are being recognised for being risky and thoughtful in the way that we commission, and one of the best things that happened recently is to see our own tracker studies begin to pick up people saying, yeah, you are taking more risks, actually, you do go to Channel 4 for a different perspective. perspective on the world or to hear a different sort of voice. And that's as important.
Well, let's talk about, I think, possibly the most controversial element of recent stories about Channel 4, which is the commissioning issue. And in fact, in this new issue broadcast out today, this survey of all independents, and you don't fare well. In fact, I think you're bottom. You're like the least. They're the most complaints, and seems to be. And there's been a whole issue of broadcast, which was all about the problems with Channel 4 commissioning and how meetings are cancelled, and people feel that you're not making up your mind fast enough, and then you change your mind. Do you recognise that there has been a problem? Do you think there's still a problem, and what are you going to do about it?
I think, on some level, I feel like someone whose homework just keeps being repeatedly marked, if I'm really honest with you. I mean, this is the 4th survey in our own tracker study, in the PACT study, and in broadcast, we came out incredibly well. And in fact, in the PACT survey and in the broadcast survey, Channel 4 was the most popular broadcaster for indies to work with. So, having said that, of course we take this seriously. And I think, I don't think your assessment of that is technically correct. In some categories, we do very well. People getting through the door and having meetings, we score well on. And to be honest, when I arrived at Channel 4, what was most alarming about it was the perceptions around closed shop, around cosy relationships with former commissioners, around a preferred list of suppliers. The key complaint was we can't get through the door, you don't take us seriously. I'm sitting here now, 2.5 years on. We are now working with 460 different independent companies. I'm on an almost constant, it feels like, nationwide tour out there seeing a different array of people. So I think we've done really well in terms of diversifying our supply. We have put the most stringent industry practices in place in terms of how quickly we'll get back to people. We've given Stuart a new role as an indie advocate, so if people are still having problems, they need to let us know. But, we shouldn't be cancelling meetings. We shouldn't be turning people around on the train. The team know that. I've been very, very clear about my expectations of them from the moment I walked through the door.
Were you shocked to read that stat? There's one stat that says that of all people that have had a meeting cancelled, 65% was at Channel 4 that they had.
Yeah, but as I say, let's be clear about this survey. I mean, this is a snapshot of an industry. This is 76 companies. We work with 460. It doesn't mean I don't take it very seriously. I do, but this is not all the people who work with Channel 4. I think that's the first thing to say. But as I say, I suspect quite a lot of my team are here. They know from the moment I've walked through the door, the most important thing in the way that we deal with people is that we are courteous, and that means people are not left in reception, and we're not cancelling people when they're halfway down the bloody M1. I mean, that shouldn't be happening. So if people are still having problems with that, then as I say, we have put in place a system which allows you to go to Stuart confidentially. You can come to me not confidentially if you want to, and we want to get this right. It's really important to us. We don't have in-house production, so our relationship with all of you is critical.
So how do you see the role of the commissioning agencies? And do you trust them and their taste, if you like, to commission stuff that they like, that you may not like sometimes? And do you have to then go, oh no, I agree with you? Do you let them do their job, and do you let them do they have that autonomy away from you, if you like?
Of course, I've said this loads of times, and the simple fact, if I made Channel 4 in my model for the sorts of shows that I would want to watch, it would be watched by 2 or 3 women who are quite well paid with 2 children who live in South London, and that would be very, very little use to anybody. So we have a remit to offer diversity. One of the reasons I'm really excited about the team I'm working with now is I have an amazing collection of creative individuals, many of whom spent long parts of their career in the independent sector. Some have come from other broadcasters who work with me again. And it matters that their vision is on air too. That's just as important. And of course, frequently, they'll come to me with something that I don't quite get. We commission shows all the time that are about somebody's individual passion.
It does. There's one quote in this article I just wanted to put to you because it's fascinating. It says that that some of the commissioners suffer from inexperience and they're nervous, and there's unclear guidance both internally and externally. Do you recognise that?
Well, no, I don't. I think I've got an incredibly experienced team, genuinely. I mean, I'm sure there are some pockets where people have conversations with people that they don't feel go as well as they might want to. And as I say, I can only say again, and anyone who attends any of the briefings that I do, I say this over and over again, please let us know if you're having problems because we want to get it right. In terms of the clarity of the strategy, I think I've been very clear what we've been trying to achieve in the time that I've been there. I think we are now delivering it, and it's clear on air the sorts of risks that we want to take and the sorts of genres we're pursuing. So I think it's quite clear.
Okay. So at least there is that, I think the key interesting there is that Stuart Cosgrove, who is this kind of independent person monitoring the way it works, is there to be got in touch with if people have complaints. And
totally. But as I say, come to me direct. I mean, frequently people do. Frequently people in this room email me going, I've had a real problem, something's got stuck in the system, I don't understand, can you help out? I will always try and do my best to help with that. Let's move on to factual and documentary, which I think is an area of, for me, an area of great strength. I know my friend Richard Baker is obsessed with your factual stuff and the fixed rig shows and all of that. Let's remind us of one of these. Now, I do warn you, those of a nervous disposition, there's a lot of swearing in this clip, but this is from one of your big hits, Skint. Let's have a look.
And if they're bothered about me claiming a bit of money, let them fucking say it to my face. Because fucking other people get it for nothing. Other people get it and they haven't even fucking done a year's work in their life, so I couldn't give a fuck what anyone thinks. And that's my honest opinion. I've got to feed my kids at the end of the day and look after my kids. And I'll do anything for my kids. Whether it's legal or illegal.
That struck me as a kind of... I was surprised by how much of a big hit. That was one of your biggest hits of the year, wasn't it? Like, I think nearly 4 million watching moments. Were you surprised and stunned by how well that show did? And why do you think it did?
I think we've had an array of programmes recently. I mean, Benefit Britain is in that vein, How to Get a Council House, and they all came out with the same sort of conversations internally, which I think are interesting around, it seems to me that one of the biggest issues that we are collectively dealing with as a nation is how are we going to afford the welfare bill? And quite a lot of these programmes come at it from the approach of saying we need to hear from people who, in a society where the gap between rich and poor is getting greater, are living on the fringes. I mean, Run, the drama that we did, was in a similar sort of spirit. So wasn't surprised by how well it did. I mean, it's always a pleasant surprise when things do well. I think right now there is a fascination with people who are living on the edge of society, and I think there was something incredibly compelling about Dean in particular being quite so open about how he lived, and we thought very, very hard about that show. I mean, the reason the voiceover was done in the way it did was because we wanted him to own this story, we wanted that community to own this story. This wasn't sneering or looking down your nose, this was about a community being heard.
Is there a danger that it slips into kind of poverty porn? I think that, that this kind of show is
I
milking...
think you've got to go back to what's the motivation for doing these things, and from my point of view, this issue of how are we going to afford to support quite such a large number of people living on the fringe of society with an ageing population is the big issue. It's not a party political issue, it's a huge issue for all of us. And I think all of these shows have tried to find ways into that, and it's interesting that they have drawn the huge audiences that they have.
So apart from that kind of specific thing, you're talking about the economy and the impact that's had, what other kind of themes you're looking to explore in your factual stuff? Is there anything you're thinking about particularly?
Well, for example, we've got a season coming up this autumn called The Campaign for Real Sex, which has been reported in various different guises in the tabloid newspapers. But again, the motivation for that was thinking we're a channel that speaks very clearly to young audiences. Someone came into work one day and said that they'd seen a kid on the bus in school uniform watching porn on an iPad going into school. And I think that's just one of those things that should make all of us pause for a second and think, hang on, we're entering a phase now where the availability of distorted images of sexuality is off the scale. We've got a generation of people who can consume porn in a way they never could before. So for a channel that speaks very effectively to young people, thinking about ways in which we can say, actually, you can have a normal sex life, you can have real experiences, not everybody looks like a porn star, and this is how you normalise that experience for young people. That sort of issue, which feels uniquely Channel 4, is the sort of campaigning piece I'm keen for us to do.
Channel 4 has a long and rich history of shows about sex, of course. Yeah. Would you like to be the new pornographer-in-chief? Would you like to be in the Daily Mail? And,
No.
Oh, OK. I'm sure there's still time, though. When that season, I've called it the porn season, when that season of shows around sex starts, so do you worry about that kind of, or do you just have to be bold? No, because
I was just sat there and explained to you what the motivation for that is, and when the pieces land, I think it'll be very, very clear what they're there to do. We've got one piece which is looking at the science of how porn corrupts the brains of teenagers, particularly teenage boys. That is not a titillating show. That's a serious piece of science, looking at how are we going to respond to that as a challenge.
Another very interesting high-profile factual show you did was The Intern, which wasn't such a big hit. And before we ask why, let's have a look at it closer.
At a top London hotel, Hilary Devey's three young hopefuls...
This is really not acceptable.
...are trying to prove they've got what it takes to get a plum job as a hotel manager.
I'm not going to leave it to chance. To prove they are management material, I'm going to put before them the worst case scenarios that could ever happen in a five-star hotel.
Because this is Hilary's own radical recruitment method, complete with actors creating crises for the interns to solve, Princess just found TV star Hugo in a very compromising position.
I think it's fair to say that's a contrast with Skint. This was like a glossy, constructed, kind of supposed to try and be fun with a big star, Hilary Devey, but it completely flopped and you had to move it back in schedule to after 11 or something. Why did it go wrong, and do you regret the whole thing?
No, it's the same. I mean, I think we looked the other day at, I think we launched more new shows last year than any other terrestrial channel. And I think if you keep taking those sorts of risks, and some of these things aren't going to land, I actually think that show has been a rather brilliant anatomy of how you deal with something that doesn't go wrong. That does go wrong. You know, we sat down with Boundless, we've talked to Hillary, we've talked to Hillary's agent, we've all had really frank conversations about how something that started, I think, in quite a positive space, which is how do we talk about another massive issue for young people today, youth unemployment, how do we do it with a bit of wit and energy? You know, is there something around the worst job interview you could ever have? Is there a show in that? I think that's not a bad insight. Somewhere along the line, that didn't quite land. And I think what's good about it and what I'm really proud about us doing at Channel 4 is when things don't quite land, we sit down and we talk about why it didn't quite land and we take something from it and we move forward. And I think, you know, we are as an industry quite good at the deafening silence when things don't land. To be able to sit here and say, we've all had that conversation, we've got a pretty good idea about why that didn't quite get there, it feels to me a very positive way of dealing with things that don't quite work.
Does it slightly put you off, or is there a shift from that kind of talent-led, formatted show to the kind of show where you are doing really well with those fixed-rig type of shows? Doesn't it make sense maybe to stop thinking about all the Gordon Ramsays and all those stars you've got leading very formatted things to doing the more keeping it real type of shows?
I think there's definitely something going on in telly generally, which I think is a bit to do with the downturn, that people crave that authenticity, and I think it's one of the reasons our documentaries, whether it's 24 Hours in A&E or One Born or 999 or Educating Essex, have done so well for us, definitely. But you know, I also used to look in on Channel 4 when I was at BBC One and be very envious of the huge array of household names that Channel 4 had on its books who routinely delivered large audiences to the channel. I mean, we've got new series this autumn from Jamie, from Gordon, from Heston, from Hugh. We've got Phil and Kirsty back. George Clark's just launched a huge hit for us with Amazing Spaces. So I think it's still important to be in that space. I think audiences can still come in their droves for those big talent-led pieces. But, you know, lucky old us that we've got that, but we also have alongside it that purest form of documentary, which is the Rig Show.
And you've got the documentary that's coming up about Liberty, the shop in London, which I mean, I'm literally in Liberty practically every night. It says a lot about me being a bit of a ponce. But is it going to be a kind of traditional documentary look at life in Liberty? Is that the kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we're offered access to things the whole time, as I'm sure you can imagine, the attraction there is they've got an incredibly charismatic new American boss in, and the culture clash of his perspective on what is an extraordinarily iconic London retail institution is really exciting, and I think it feels like it's going to be a glossy, escapist documentary, which in the mix of things we've got this autumn feels absolutely right for the channel.
Let's move on to drama, which I do think is, apart from the Paralympics, for me personally, is a huge area of strength, and you've had a lot of dramas that have done very well critically, some have done well commercially as well, and have been big hits. Let's start with Utopia, which I think was possibly the boldest one of them all. Let's have a look at clips to remind us.
It's a graphic novel. It's about a scientist who makes a deal with the devil.
Where is Jessica Hyde?
Do you want to see my nuclear fallout shelter?
You should make it your mission. All of us have a mission in life. This is yours.
People are dying.
Who?
What?
Why?
Are you trying to wind me up?
You have no idea how powerful they are. Things are gonna get mad.
So that was a show full of sex, violence and swearing. I loved it, obviously. It was also brilliant. But what was it about that? Does that sum up in a way what you're looking for in drama, and what was it about it that
No, I mean, you very generously said we've had a great year. I think we have had a great year, but one of the reasons we've had a great year is there's been, you know, extraordinary range. If you look at something like Complicit sitting there as a very powerful single film, you look at The Mill, which is in a much more mainstream area and has delivered large audiences for us. I think to have a piece like that in the mix, I mean, it was one of my proudest moments as a commissioner to have been involved even indirectly in Utopia. Extraordinary script from Dennis Kelly. You know, I'm slightly obsessed about this, but Mark Munder's direction in that, I think you could freeze frame every single shot in the entire series, blow it up and put it on your wall. I mean, it's just an extraordinary piece of storytelling. It's an amazingly compelling gang show, but it is an amazing piece of craft. And I think it was never going to be a massive show, that show. It was always going to be a cult hit, and that's exactly what it turned out to be, and we're really, really proud of it.
And you commissioned, because that's quite bold again, that you recommissioned it, even though, as you say, it was a cult hit rather than a big, huge...
I mean, that goes back to the performance thing again. I mean, Channel 4 is there to back great talent and to back great innovation and to be bold and ambitious, and I think, you know, it's inconceivable to me that show couldn't have been recommissioned. It is of such quality, it is so channel-defining. It's one of the most exciting things, I think, in drama in the past 5 years on any channel. Of course it will come back.
Another strand that people have picked out out in your dramas, the Mill, Southcliffe, people are calling them misery dramas. I mean, I don't know how fair you think that is. But is there something, what is it you're looking for in drama? Is it the script first? Is that what attracts you first? Is that where Piers Wenger, your head of drama, is that what he's looking for first?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it was quite funny when we did the launch and everyone's saying, oh, they're all really miserable. Well, you know, well, who knew? We've now come out with Southcliffe and The Mill, two of our highest rating dramas for many, many years on Channel 4. I mean, we don't embark on it thinking, you know, I wonder if we can really depress people over the summer. I mean, that's not what you do. I mean, I think they both came from a very Channel 4 place. The Mill, authentic, completely based around real records from Quarry Bank Mill, tells you about an interesting part of history that we didn't know about. They're all uniquely Channel 4 flavours to it. I think Southcliffe, just again, extraordinary piece of direction, and to have the courage to say this won't be a conventional procedural, this will be about the aftermath of a crime, not the crime, again, is the Channel 4-ness of that. So I think there's going to be a huge range in what we've got coming up. I mean, I can announce today, I'm sort of hugely excited to say this, that Danny Boyle is going to be directing a drama, a Sam and Jesse piece for us set inside the police for next year.
Oh, cool.
For next year. Beyond that, we have a huge period drama, 10-part series, Indian Summers, which is landing for us as well. So, and that's looking at the birth of modern India, it's looking at multiculturalism, but it's got a fantastic set of relationships at its heart as well, directed by Simon Curtis, obviously did Cranford. So I think when you look at that range, you think, I'm so proud of the fact that this is the Big Brother dividend for Channel 4. This is where the money has gone into an array of drama, which delivers things like Run, which delivers 10-part period drama, which delivers Danny Boyle to Channel 4.
Did you have to spend that budget on taking Danny Boyle to dinner to get him to direct this new project? Yes?
No.
I'm saying a big meal at the Ivy with Danny Boyle, with Piers and you might have happened. But is it tough to convince someone like that? I mean, he's a busy man to do.
You know, look,
a TV
next year, it's
project.
not. I mean, I'm delighted that we've got Danny on the channel. We've also got Paul Abbott back. I mean, you know, Paul Abbott is one of the hottest talents, not just in this country, but in America as well. Already, you know, deep in scripts for No Offence, which will land for us for next year. We have Peter Flannery's new drama. We have Dennis Kelly coming back with Utopia. I hope we'll be bringing The Mill back as well. So I think it's going to be a really, really rich year next year in drama too.
I'm also interested in the acquisitions you've had. You've had The Returned, which was a bold move to put it. I keep using the word bold, please forgive me. But you've put a drama with subtitles on Sunday night in that Homeland slot.
Yeah.
Were you pleased with its performance, and are you open to that kind of thing? Are you looking to acquire more of that kind of show?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I wasn't just pleased, I was absolutely over the moon. I mean, I think it's a huge punt to take a foreign language drama and park it on a terrestrial channel on the most competitive night for drama at 9 o'clock. And I think, you know, that The Returned has consistently consolidated to around 2 million. It's absolutely extraordinary. And I think it speaks volumes about the way, in a nice possible way, we sort of warmed that slot up with shows like Homeland, that there's an expectation from the audience now that Channel 4 can be in the game on a Sunday night for drama. They came to it, they loved it, and they were incredibly loyal about staying with it, even when there was competitive stuff on other channels. So, you know, I'm really thrilled with that. But you know, it's not a big crusade to go and find foreign drama. That piece, I think, felt unique and very, very Channel 4. If other things like that came along, we'd definitely look at them.
And what about Hostages, which was another acquisition coming out? How does that fit into that?
But I think, again, I mean, Hostages is a new thriller starring Toni Collette, which will launch in the States later this autumn. Big, bright thriller, engaging, roller coaster ride of a piece, and I think that's a different flavour in the mix. We've got Masters of Sex coming up this autumn, starring Michael Sheen, which, again, beautiful period drama.
We're going to see a clip of that
superbly
later.
Crafted. Sorry, I blew it then.
No,
Sorry, let myself down.
That's fine. No. That's all right. We can go off-piste. That's fine. So if you've got a strategy with that, Christian, it seems to me you're getting more, you're acquiring more stuff. You're more, because there was a period where Channel 4 didn't seem that open to acquiring particularly American stuff and went off it a bit, but are you back now? That's now due to Homeland.
No, I don't. I mean, you know, to be honest, we're probably not back even to the level Channel 4 was 2 or 3 years ago. I mean, I've got to be honest, I'm really proud of our track record. I mean, to have picked up Homeland on E4, to have Big Bang, but also have picked up Two Broke Girls and New Girl, Mindy Project, all have gone on to become big hits in the States. Nashville on More 4. I mean, I think we've got a pretty good track record there. So in the mix, after a huge run of homegrown drama and the success of The Returned, to have Masters of Sex and Hostages, and also we've picked up Marvel's wonderfully tongue-in-cheek superhero drama Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I think it's just great to have that level of scripted in the schedule and that level of, you know, glossy drama that feels like a destination for Channel 4.
Well, as a huge geek, I'm looking forward to Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And we have had more. What were the? Remind me. Sorry. What were the?
Live.
Christmas Live. Person in my ear is saying. Shopping Live.
That was done a few. Yeah. Christmas
Live
was done a few years ago.
Was
with
it? Oh, yeah, it was.
Born,
yeah.
Shopping Live.
At Liberty. Shopping at Liberty Live, maybe. Live spin-off of the Liberty
Put up your hand
show.
if you're a man in this room and you're watching that show. I rest my case.
Literally no one. Oh, okay. Let's talk about stuff more in depth about stuff coming up, and also I want to touch on comedy for a bit, because I think there's been a period We've felt, to me, like a kind of slightly fallow period with Channel 4 on comedy. But before we do that, let's look at this kind of package of clips of stuff you've got coming up.
I'm a new head teacher. My values are very traditional. I believe students should turn up to school on time.
Your attendance is shocking. He's a slow walker, you know, and the paths were slipping 54 times.
Dressed appropriately.
You need a wet wipe to get that off.
Be nice to people.
I actually hate who invented maths there.
He hates you too.
Like my eyebrows. Shaved them all off. Shaved all my eyebrows off.
So listen, last night,
Yeah?
apparently James blew me.
James blew you. You let James, your sister's boyfriend, blow you.
Yeah.
But he says fun.
Yes, he does. He said it several times.
He's gonna cut your balls clean off, mate. Why'd you let him do that?
You know what it's like when you're steaming.
I've spent the last 14 years of my life steaming, but I'm yet to let another man put his mouth around my lad.
What am I gonna do?
Are you gay now?
Why would you say that?
If that's who you are, I totally respect that, Connor. I mean, obviously I couldn't be friends with you anymore.
I'm not gay.
So tell him that.
Oh, but I feel bad. He's such a nice fella.
Did he buy you them?
He says he loves me.
Aye, well, it might be all flowers and fucking blowjobs now, but sooner or later, you're gonna have to take it up the hole, Connor. Your choice.
Every museum in the world is filled with art, created from this basic impulse.
Women often think that sex and love are the same thing. They don't have to be. They don't even have to go together.
The study of sex is the study of the beginning of all life.
It's not medicine.
It is medicine, but I'm the only one who sees it. Why would a woman fake an orgasm?
Usually so the woman can get back to whatever it is she'd rather be doing.
There we go. Those who were educating Yorkshire, to start with at the beginning of that. Educating Essex was a fantastic show. But why didn't you do another series there? Why pick somewhere else to go to? And is it going to be a similar kind of setup?
Well, we had a long chat to the school in Essex, and ultimately we all decided it was time for us to move on. I mean, I think inevitably, particularly in an environment like that, there's a duty of care around how are you going to distort that experience. And I think the school were quite right to be anxious as well about, you know, how would the kids behave second time round. I think the school there with Mr. Mitchell in the lead is extraordinary. It's in Dewsbury. It's a much more multicultural environment. It gets you into all sorts of issues that Educating Essex didn't. But I mean, the amazing thing about it, the first episode, which I can't recommend highly enough, is a bit sort of Dead Poets Society. I mean, there's an extraordinary drama sitting at the heart of it. And again, it's that revelation I think Channel 4 does very well of how very big themes emerge from tiny, tiny little interactions. And I'm really excited about it.
And the second clip was from London Irish. So to talk about comedy, that's a scripted, looked very funny, scripted comedy. But it seems to me there haven't been many scripted comedies. There have been a lot of hidden camera type stunt shows. Why has there been, is that fair?
I mean, I think there've been almost, I think I can only think of one hidden camera stunt show actually, but I think no, I don't think that's necessarily true. I certainly think, though, that we're about to enter a phase of having an awful lot of comedy on Channel 4 again, and I think there's a real range in that. We've got Greg Davis's first sitcom for us, Man Down, which lands this autumn. We've got Matt Berry in Toast. Lisa McGee's extraordinary show there, London Irish, brilliant new gang show, which I think lands really, really confidently. We're excited about as well. Fresh Meat is back. We've got Drifters from Work, who obviously made In-Betweeners for us, landing on E4 this autumn as well. And a real gem, I cannot flag how good it is enough, really, is the IT Crowd special. I mean, it's the Graham Linehan absolute gem, and I think will be an instant comedy classic. So the very last episode of that, which will also air this autumn.
So that London Irish bit looked like it had something of the In-Betweeners and maybe Peep Show. Is that fair? Was that
it's a slightly different thing. I mean, again, the thing that feels uniquely Channel 4 about it, backing a Derry writer to bring a gang show full of relatively unknown talent. And I think the thing that's very interesting about it, as we've seen in the first 2 or 3 episodes, is it lands in a very assured way, sort of from the off. And, you know, they're older than the In-Betweeners guys. They're 20-something gang living in London. But, I mean, I have very high hopes of it.
So are you saying that Channel 4 now does have, it's keen on comedy and that you're encouraging people to come up with comedy ideas?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's ever changed. I mean, I think the only slight shift, and I don't even think this has changed strategically in the past few years, is to say that we don't want comedy simply to occupy the outer reaches of the schedule. It should have the ambition of being able to play right in the heart of peak, having big, broad laughs that we can bring in good audiences with as well. So it will always be important that we back the different sorts of voices like we do on E4 with things like Noel Fielding's Luxury Comedy, which will always be a small show but an important show. But in the mix, I think we should also have the ambition of getting big laugh out loud pieces that audiences will come to.
Will you give comedy, because comedy strikes me as the one genre that needs time to grow, and you know, famously Nicholas Lyndhurst has been going on about how Only Fools and Horses wouldn't be commissioned now, and that comedy, if it doesn't punch through in the first couple of episodes, people get very negative about it. Are you willing to give stuff a go, to give it a chance? If a 6-part comedy doesn't get, you know, 2 million in its first week, you might stick with it and recommission it?
I mean, we have many examples of that already. I mean, Phone Shop, which is one of my personal favourite comedies ever, doesn't do huge volume, but is an incredibly important piece, and it's been sitting there for 3 series on E4. Cardinal Burns, equally, discreet performer on E4, multi-award winning now, is coming straight across to the main channel. I mean, it wouldn't have made that move on the strength of its audience, but it's a very, very good piece, and we're moving it for that reason. So, you know, I think sometimes people say you need to let things go to 3 series when really there just isn't the scope for it to grow to 3 series. But when you see something with real quality that you think you can get behind and back, then I think that's right, that they need time to bed down.
In the past, you've had kind of comedy showcases. You've had a lot of one-offs, and sometimes you turn them into series, sometimes you don't. I think Toast was one. Are you keen to keep doing that? And how does that, and Four Funnies, what does that work?
Phil's probably here today. I mean, Phil looks after that. His complete delegated authority for commissioning the Four Funnies, and they are individual pilots that could then go to series. If we see potential for them to go to series, as we did with Man Down, then they become the first episode of a series. So I think still being able to get behind things that can have a one attempt at landing, we can have a look at them. But again, I mean, you look at the ratings for things like that, it's sort of neither here nor there. You're really looking at it to assess the quality of the piece and whether it has potential to go further.
And in terms of Masters of Sex, which we saw, which you mentioned earlier, which is this big 12-part Showtime thing about Masters and Johnson, looks very interesting. It was like a big... what is it about that kind of show that appealed to you? Why is that a thing you spend a lot of money on?
I think a couple of things about that. I mean, the performances are extraordinary and get a glimpse of it from there, but it is an incredibly big, glossy period drama with a love triangle at the heart, really strong female character in it as well. But it also tells you about a period of history that I certainly didn't know. I didn't know about the evolution of sexual science and how that's evolved. So it's sexy but beautifully performed, and it feels like a really glossy addition to the schedule.
Let's move on to entertainment, which may be another slightly more difficult area to talk about. And the clip we're going to look at is a show called Baggage.
Who are you and why are you on my carousel?
Hi, I'm Karen, I'm Ben's mum, and I'm here to tell you that Ben has a disgusting habit of farting everywhere and anywhere.
Right, well, thank you very much indeed. Ben, is this true? I can't help it. I'm quite uncomfortable if I don't, so, you know, I am cutting down on it now. I'm trying not to... Oh, great, all right. You're going cold turkey on the farting? Yeah. Right, wonderful. Wonderful. So, Sophie, what about you? Any wind issues?
I don't know what I'd think about sitting for a romantic meal and thinking, oh, that wasn't me.
So that was a show that got terrible reviews and pretty low ratings. Why do you think it didn't work?
I think, you know, we are a young skewing channel. I think that we can have goes at things like that. It's a dating show. I think Chocolate, to be fair to them, did a perfectly good job with it. It did a perfectly respectable audience, but not big enough to be worth bringing back. And again, I always think when stuff doesn't quite land, you have to think, well, what do you take from that? I mean, I don't know how many episodes people in this room watched of Baggage, but Gok was utterly fantastic in it. And, you know, what we took from that is Gok is able to hold an audience like that. As a result, we brought him in to do a live show for us over the summer, which rated well and delivered good young audiences. So, you know, not everything will work. Some things will not be as successful as you want them to be, but it's always about saying, well, what do you take from that and where do you go next? I mean, I think it's important to keep that momentum.
Is entertainment a hard area for Channel 4 now? Because I remember the glory days of Don't Forget Your Toothbrush and all that kind of thing. Is it tough, particularly for Channel 4, to get entertainment right? And are you still up for big entertainment commissions?
I mean, I don't think it's just tough for Channel 4. I mean, you look at what's going on BBC One and ITV early evening on a Saturday night at the moment. I mean, it's really hard. Entertainment.
That public game show, you're not a fan?
ITV and BBC One are having a tough time of it as well. I think it's a very, very hard genre to get right. And if you bear in mind that we also sort of rule ourselves out of the arms race on the Saturday night of, you know, who can spend more millions on a Saturday night talent show, we're not in that game. So, I mean, I think that's one of the challenges. The second challenge is, which is a real one for us, which is what is our tone of voice pre-Watershed? And that's quite tough, because if you tend to be quite edgy and you tend to be a bit more adult in your humour, thinking, what does that look and feel like when it's playing out at 8 o'clock, which is, to be fair, and one of the reasons we tried something like Baggage, is a tough challenge. And I think it's a very long time for any channel to have really successfully landed that sort of piece with that sort of tone of voice as a returning series that isn't a talent show at 8 o'clock. So it's a tough one. Everyone finds it tough, and we just have to keep going.
Do you feel that E4 maybe is a place where it's easier to park entertainment shows? And are you looking for more entertainment shows for E4?
I don't park anything, to be honest, but I think you know, yeah, it'd be great to find a big entertainment show for E4. And I think E4 is an extraordinary proposition. It's got a very pure sense of what it is. It's an absolute destination in terms of its acquisitions. We've had hits this year with Mad Fat Diary and Youngers. Made in Chelsea goes from strength to strength. Misfits back. We've got a big drama with a thriller called Glue, which will land next year as well. So I think its real strength lies in scripted, but it would be fantastic in the mix to have an entertainment show that could sit comfortably on E4, but they're tricky to find.
And Cardinal Burns, which started on E4, you moved to Channel 4.
Yeah.
So in a way, is there a little bit of that going on, that if you see something on E4 that you like and is a hit, you're going to move it to Channel 4?
Yeah, possibly. But I mean, I think one of the great things about E4, it has a very, very pure sense of what it is. And I mean, often there are things that would sit very comfortably on E4 that would be quite an odd fit. But I mean, for example, Phone Shop we've repeated recently on Channel 4 as well. So sometimes there'll be a bit of that flow. Sometimes it's a piece that feels bespoke for that channel, and that's right that it should.
Right, I'm going to throw it open to you guys in a second. Before, my final question, I guess, is you have been in charge of Channel 4 for a few years now, which for your level of TV executive is astonishing, really. And every time a new job comes open, well, there seems to always be changing around. You know.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I didn't mean not because of you, nothing personal. But every time a new job gets mentioned in the press, at the BBC or ITV, your name comes up. Are you happy at Channel 4? Do you want to stay at Channel 4 and carry on? Or are you going to lots of job interviews at BBC?
I don't know what it is. I think if you've ever worked at the BBC, then whenever a BBC job comes up, there is an assumption that you're knocking on the door saying, let me back in. I mean, in the nicest possible way. I mean, I left the BBC to do this job. I absolutely love this job. We are on a journey to get this channel right. I think we've made huge progress, but there's still more to do. I haven't applied for any other job. I haven't talked to anyone about any other job. I just want to do this job.
Yeah, very firm. You have not applied for any other job. That's on the record. Right, thank you very much. Let's put it to the audience, and we've got a young man in the middle of the front row, very handily. A mic will arrive now.
Hi there, I'm Conor McGregor, and I just want to ask you, you mentioned just before earlier that you're talking about shows from E4 moving to Channel 4, and my question revolves around comedy. When you get comedy shows pitched for both Channel 4 and E4, how do you decide that a comedy show, where a comedy show goes, whether it's for Channel 4, E4, maybe even more for? How do you decide on that?
I mean, in one respect, it's incredibly simple. If it is really overtly young and it's going to talk really clearly to a very, very young audience and it has limited appeal beyond that, then it's going to go to E4. If we think it's a comedy that's got a young tone of voice but might also be slightly broader in appeal, then it will sit on the main channel. So it's actually relatively straightforward to do that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Gentleman right at the back. Sorry, I'm making the mic person go to the back. Second row from the back, just a few in. There we go.
Hi there, I'm Joe Smith, and I'm a big fan of all the comedy you made this year. But one of the ones I was most looking forward to, and sadly disappointed by, was Full English, which I think was a funny show, but didn't quite find its audience. I was wondering if you're planning to yet again move into the market of animated comedies and things like that. You've had great stuff like Bob's Burgers on E4. And I'm just wondering if that's a market that you're still going to continue to try and meet and challenge, or if you've been warned off it somewhat by Full English.
No, I haven't been warned off it. I mean, I think animation, crikey, it takes so long, doesn't it? I mean, you sort of forget. I mean, I think if something came through the door that we thought we liked the look of and frankly was affordable, because it's also incredibly expensive, then I think we would look at doing animation again. I think you're right, Full English had lots about it that was really good. It didn't quite land, but it's not a massive push for us, if I'm honest. But if we found the right sort of piece and we could deliver it in a time frame which felt realistic and we could afford it, then yes, but there are quite a lot of ifs there, I'm afraid.
I think we've got time for one more question. Sorry, I haven't left enough time for questions. I can only apologise. Any more questions? Who's bold, brave enough for one more? No? Well, I can... Oh, well, yes, gentleman there. Thanks, mate. Right, 3 rows from the front. Here we go.
Hi, it's Richard Lewis here. Thank you very much. You spoke about risk and breaking new talent quite a lot, and found that really interesting. Do you ever think about, obviously with TV, you've got limited shelf space, there's a lot more pressure to get it right. Do you ever think about using other platforms, online platforms, to offset some of that risk?
Yes, we do, and some of our comedies go out in that space exclusively. And one of the things I think we've got to be a bit careful about is the biggest marketing tool that Channel 4 has is Channel 4. And I think if we're going to do that, we need to find a way in which there's some correlation between what's online and what's on the main channel. And when we find a way in which we can cross-promote from the main channel to our online content, then we stand some chance of people finding it. What I'm not at all keen on is landing stuff online, not finding a way of supporting it. And frankly, we might as well not have bothered then, because it's very, very difficult for audiences to find. So, I mean, we've done this a lot, actually, very successfully with our education strategy. We want to embed things with some sort of connection with the linear schedule so we can use that as a marketing tool to drive people to the online thing. So we wouldn't rule it out at all, but if you're thinking in that space, think about what the connection is with what we're already doing so that we can get some people to it. Otherwise, it just sort of sits in the ether, I think.
Thank you. That is all we've got time for, apart from saying that the final Twitter suggestion for a live event was sewers live.
Sewers?
Sewers, yeah, like tracing it from shit to coming out of the end into the sea.
I can honestly say that has never been pitched.
Well, it was original, a triumph, an original idea has been the result of this extraordinary interaction that we've had using Twitter in the controller session. Thanks, Jay Hunt, thank you very much. Thanks to you all for coming.